Welcome everyone to this Self-Help Africa's Science for Development webinar on the very dirty issue of global waste. This series of webinars showcases student research projects from the 2024 BT Young Scientist. My name is Aaron Towers and I'm part of the Global Citizenship Education team at Self-Help Africa, and each year we have the pleasure of participating at the Young Scientist and presenting their Science for Development Award. And we have the winners of that new trophy and the award with us today on this panel. So you'll get to hear from the winning project and the students, Rachel and Ella, who are with us. There they are, getting the lovely new trophy that was also designed by an Irish student. So we'll get to hear from Rachel and Ella shortly, as well as from two other projects coming from Longford and Kerry, and as well from our guest speaker from Self-Help Africa's programs coming from Malawi, Smorden Tomoko. Our involvement in the BT Young Scientist inspires us every year. We come across many noteworthy projects that we are featuring today, but also in other webinars in this series and at our showcase event, which is run in Dublin every year and will come up this September, October. Of particular interest to our work as a development organization are innovations that are accessible to all and that are climate smart and address, very importantly, social issues that face rural farming communities globally, in Ireland, globally, but also specifically communities in Africa, which represent some of the most vulnerable in the world. So waste in all its manifestations is a huge issue for societies and economies across the world. I think it must be one of the greatest failings of human development, the fact of the waste, the pollution that we produce. And the impacts, the unfairly felt impacts of waste are some of the starkest examples of inequality and injustice felt in the world. So a fundamental rethink is required and is underway. The concepts of circular economies and the zero waste system or systems are accepted by governments around the world and are being transitioned to. The likes of a zero waste hierarchy, this simple diagram just highlights where we are and where we need to get to. So you can see that the ideas, the promotion of recycling and composting is not enough. That before we get to that level of dealing with waste, we need to consider reusing, reducing what we use and what we demand of the world. And for that to really happen, we need to rethink and we need to redesign. And that's where the innovation comes in. And that's where these research projects that we're going to hear about are part of. That social change means that the systems change and get redesigned. We reduce our impact. We reuse what we need. We recycle, we compost as much as possible. And that we actually even recover materials and make use of things that are already regarded as waste or pollution. We find ways of using those to reduce everything right down. With that in mind, let me introduce the panel. So along with our winners coming from Westmeath, who are Rachel and Ella, and their project on banana bandages, we also have, coming from Kerry, we have CBS Secondary with Eanna, James and Joseph, and their soil health and crop growth project. Hi guys. Then we also have Jared and Gerard from St Mel's College in Longford, and they have a project focusing on protecting water sources and upcycling water waste streams in agriculture. And then we also have, as I say, the regional program manager of Self-Help Africa, who's talking to us from Malawi, but his region covers Zambia and Mozambique also. If we could go to the projects quickly, our students, and does anybody have a standout memory of the RDS back in January? Maybe if I go to the guys in St. Mel's College first, would either of you have a standout memory?
Sure. Meet new people is probably the best bit.
Yeah, that's a good one. You get inspiration from the other projects. And then in Kerry, Eanna, James, or Joseph, have you got a standout memory?
Meeting the president.
Meeting the president, yeah, well, there you go. And then to the project that won our award, the Science for Development Award, Rachel and Ella in Moate Community School. I imagine winning was quite memorable.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the best memories of BT. We also got to meet with the now Taoiseach, Simon Harris. Got pictures of him and multiple other people.
What was it like going up on the stage?
Quite daunting, but quite rewarding at the same time. It was a lovely experience.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. And then if I can go to our scientist, Self-Help Africa's regional coordinator in Malawi, Smorden. We still can't see you, unfortunately, but I'm trusting that you are there. Maybe could you tell us what's it like in Malawi at the moment? Because for us, it's hard to imagine what the weather, the climate there is just now. It's quite cold and wet still here. We haven't got into our summer yet at all. How's it for you?
Thank you so much, Aaron. Apologies, I'm still struggling with my
Don't worry.
video, but I think you can hear me. Firstly, let me say I'm quite excited to be part of the discussions today, and so much excited also about the topic, which focuses on waste, and even much more happier to see that students are trying to come up with solutions on one of the biggest challenges the world is facing, which is waste management. And in terms of your question, so Malawi is located in the southern part of Africa. So that's where I'm based. And we are just into our rainy season. We should be ending this month of April. So it's cooler and rainy.
Very good. When you say cool, though, what temperature are you at? Because we're at about 10 or 11 degrees.
No. Actually, it's around 18, 19. On average, it's mostly around 23 and 24. But today it's a bit cooler, around 19 degrees Celsius.
I mean, that's very instructive to us, and listening to you from this side, that cool temperatures are 18, 19. But maybe we can start with the beginning of your presentation, Smorden, and you could just show us just how stark and challenging a situation dealing with waste is in your region. And I think we should bear in mind that here in Ireland, where we have a wealthy economy and a very highly educated population that are very aware that we still have serious issues with waste and a problem with the amount that we manage to recycle or compost, and that still a lot goes to landfill or into untreated into the sea and the watercourses, as well here. But things are very much worse in other parts of the world. So maybe would you tell us a little bit about the size of the problem, Smorden?
Thank you so much, Aaron, and welcome to everyone. As you can see on the picture that I'm beaming, I want people to look at two sides of the coin, because yes, we know we normally look at waste as a challenge, But then I think we would also need to change our mindset around that, so that we also look at waste as an opportunity for us to add value and come up with something that can also help others to move into entrepreneurship. So you see that the topmost picture is depicting one of the challenges that we are facing in Africa, as well as also in Malawi, whereby we have a lot of waste that ends up into a landfill, and that presents a lot of challenges in terms of public health. But at the same time, I think it also presents an opportunity in the sense that it's possible to recycle, reuse, and upscale the waste and turn it into something valuable. So you would see some of the examples in the pictures that are depicted below, that kinds of demonstrate the fact that we can do something about waste. And Aaron, when you're giving your introduction, you mentioned about moving towards zero waste and moving towards circular economy. So I think that should be the norm, so that we ensure we recycle and utilize the waste to become a resource, so that that can also help to improve people's livelihoods. Waste management is one of our key programming areas. As you can see, we've mostly been focusing on wash, but now we have kind of stepped up our efforts around also bringing on board waste management, because we believe if we have our environments safe, then that would enable people to live a healthier life, and also would use waste also as an opportunity to create jobs where people would utilize the waste to bring in some agricultural inputs from the wash value chains. And we have some 6 focus areas that we are looking at Self-Help Africa. And you will see that focus area number 4 actually looks at an aspects to do with waste. And we are looking at waste as an opportunity to create wealth. Like I've said, there is a very big opportunity to create some job opportunities, as well as also some businesses, and so that can also help to improve people's livelihoods. So you know that waste for health is one of our key developmental areas, and it links very well with the discussions that are happening today. And most of this work that we are doing, we are working with a number of communities in a number of countries, including Malawi.
And maybe I'll just say quickly that the WASH program, the acronym that you're mentioning there, that WASH stands for Water, Sanitation and Hygiene.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aaron. Waste is indeed a global issue. And for Africa, as you can see, it's only 55% of the waste that is collected. Yeah. And 4% it's only 4% that is recycled, which means there's a lot that ends into a landfill. The majority of this waste is just dumped or is actually burned. That also increases some greenhouse gases. So you will note that it's a very big challenge across Africa. And specifically for Malawi, the collection rate is even less, at only 20%. And I should mention that we generate, especially for organic waste, close to 95% of the entire composition of waste, and only 20% is collected, which means a lot of it ends in a landfill. And only 0.3% of that waste is reused. Yeah. So which means we are losing a big opportunity of reusing, recycling the waste into something valuable. So what this means is that this uncollected waste actually leads to environmental pollution. It also generates a lot of public health risks, So we have a number of diarrhea cases that emanates from this public risk. And the fact that most of this ends up into a landfill or into a dump site, it means we have a lot of waste generating significant greenhouse gases emissions, so which is a very big challenge. So as Safe Hope Africa, we really seek to create value chains from the waste to create, one, we want to create more jobs and income to achieve healthy lives, as well as also ensuring that we achieve the environmental benefits. Because if people stay in a clean environment, it means they will also enjoy a clean health in that particular environment. And then one thing that I wanted to mention also is that Malawi is one of the agro-based economies, and it employs about 85% into the agricultural sector. And most of the smallholder farmers rely on chemical fertilizer as a fertilizer that we input into a crop production. But then we are being faced with a number of challenges, including the increase in costs of chemical fertilizers, of course, which has also been escalated as a result of the Ukraine crisis. So there is need to change mindset and use waste and put it into organic waste so that it can replace the use of fertilizers. So that's one thing that we are trying to promote with our communities that we are supporting, so that we use compost as an alternative for chemical fertilizers that are expensive and cannot be sourced locally easily. And then we are also supporting by using waste as a source of energy through briquettes. And also we'll be planning to raise black soldier flies. I recall, I think one of your webinars under agriculture, there was a discussion about black soldier flies. So you can use the larva as an alternative source of proteins, and then the byproduct can also be used as a biofertilizer. So trying to make sure that we close the loop and we utilize the waste into something variable. So I think that's what I can say. And then on the right there, you can see the picture that is just showcasing the waste, which is in different form. I think we have some organic waste there. We also have some papers. And then below there, there is an image. This is for Kampala, Uganda, and it's just trying to show the composition of waste. And you'll see that the majority is organic waste, which is about 73%. And this organic waste is actually biodegradable, which presents an opportunity to reuse for something valuable, especially for compost.
Yeah, that's very stark, I think, and it works very well towards what the students have been studying here and we'll hear from now. And those figures are quite breathtaking if we look at how little is collected and how much is burnt. And I think from our side, we need to reflect on an issue that a lot of students focus on here, which is fast fashion and how much we buy and how much is dumped, as in not dumped here in Ireland or the EU, but is shipped to Africa and ends up in a dump like that picture or being burnt. And the fact that 85% of workers in, say, Malawi are agricultural. So any solutions, innovations that are focused on farming communities and the agricultural sector is going to have a huge impact. So with that in mind, maybe, Shmordan, if you allow me to go to the student projects. So if I can go over to CBS Secondary in Kerry and the students, Eanna, James and Joseph. And I'll just read out the title of your project, Enhancing Soil Health and Crop Growth Through Natural Soil Enhancers, a comparative study. And then you described it further by saying, we will trial crushed seashells and nettles and local traditional homeopathic solution as a healthier alternative to chemical fertilizers and to minimize damage to soil microorganisms. Would you like to tell us about your research and, and what is the issue with soil health?
We are three young rural farmers, and our interest in this project came from hearing about the green flag in school. We learned about the circular economy and the biocircular economy, and about renewable projects to manage our land food waste and our industry waste. We visited two companies in Kerry. We went to a crab factory in Dingle called Thibeaud, and we went to the Kerry Co-op in Listowel. Both companies have a lot amount of waste. So down in Thibeaud, the crab factory, they were dumping 90% of the shell, and they were keeping the meat. They were making meat. But then a couple of years ago, they were being given trouble by the health authority about how they were dumping the crab into the sea, and it was causing problems and it was causing smell. So Ted Brune, the owner of the company, decided to come up with a solution for it, and he decided to come up with a compost fertilizer. He tried it for many years, trying it, and then he figured out one day that there is this material in the soil called chitin, and chitin has many great values. It has germs that will kill the bad germs, and it will promote the good ones. He started trialing it, and then he realized that the older it is, the better it gets. So he has it sitting for 4 years now, and then he's ready. After 4 years, then he's ready to ship it off to countries that needs going, or to sell it to people. And then we went to this the Kerry Co-op. We went to Listowel to visit that, and they have a product called dairy sludge, which when after washing down all the machines to make the milk, it creates this sludge-like that is very hard to dispose of. So then they added chemicals into it and trialed it once again with field trials, Arabidopsis trials and tray trials, trying to get a fertilizer out of it, but eventually they got it right. And then we trialed all them in our project, and if you've read through the booklet, you can see that both crab conditioner and dairy sludge performed very well.
As well as the chemical, sort of the mainstream chemical fertilizers?
Yeah, what we saw in the two fertilizers was that they were very slow at the start, but once the roots have gotten long enough to absorb all the chitin and all the nutrients, it shot up. So it might have been very slow starting, but after a week of it growing, it shot up, and it grew like a lot of length and very strongly in that short amount of time. And then we compared it to a control and chemical fertilizer, and the dairy sludge and the crab conditioner proved that it was better.
Actually better? More?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's very encouraging. There is no sort of residual pollution from these forms of fertilizer.
So the dairy sludge, the milk, as you know, if it gets into rivers and if it gets into water, it's awful damaging to the fish and to all the animals around. So what the Kerry Co-op and what all the co-ops are doing is they will test if the dairy sludge will go out into water. If there's any water that it's able to go out into for free, they will pay for it. So the dairy sludge is risk-free. There's no risk. And then the crab soil conditioner, you add it to grass, and there's no disadvantages to it. It promotes the grass, and it doesn't kill any bad germs or any bad microorganisms or anything like that.
It's possible that it's a new income resource for these companies.
Yeah, but the only the only company that's here at the moment with the crab conditioner one is Thibeaud in Dingle, and they have been producing it on a small scale because they're only allowed to use their own crabs for the moment until they get FDA approval or something like that. And then once they get that, they will try buying some other company's waste and then creating more fertilizer and making it in a lot more quantity, and then hopefully making it into a product.
Well done. And after your experience of going to the BT Young Scientist, are you continuing with the project at all, or are you inspired to look at something else?
For the next part of our project, we're going to continue it to field trials. And we got a suggestion from a worker in Self-Help Africa that if we were to replace the crab shell with oyster shell, because he told us that there is excessive amounts of oyster shell waste in Southern Africa. And he had told us that if we could replace the crab shell with oyster shell, it would be very handy and easy to make over there.
So another part of our project that we want to continue on is that we recommend to the EU legislation that they add 5 to 10% of waste products into their fertilizers. So we decided to continue on the project more. We would trial this and hopefully add 5 and 10% into each fertilizer, and then trial it and test it and see if it comes out the same or it's better, if it's worse.
Okay, great. Well, fair play. That's brilliant, because often these projects, you get so far and then you move on. So it's great to hear that you're inspired to look further into it. And hopefully we'll get to meet you at our showcase up in Dublin and learn a bit more about it from you in person. So thank you for that. And we'll go on to hear from another project, the project in Westmeath and Moate Community School, who actually won the Science for Development Awards with. So we have Rachel and Ella, and their project was titled Banana Bandages, a sustainable approach to wound care. And the description goes on to say, this project aims to develop biodegradable bandages sustainably from plant waste for use in developing countries. So obviously that what stood out to us straight away, your focus on developing countries. And that description is a very short one for a very comprehensive study that you did. So would you tell us about the medical and environmental issues that you looked to address and what you came up with?
So basically, we looked at developing countries. We were looking at the news and found that since the war in Ukraine has broken out, there's been a significant reduction in access to medical aid, especially in war-torn areas such as Somalia. So Somalia has been ravaged by a civil war, and less than 30% of children have access to medical vaccinations in the region. So we wanted to try and help with these by creating a biodegradable natural solution that local people in developing countries could produce themselves cheaply. We chose to use banana peels, as they contain a high cellulose levels. Cellulose is a fibre that aids faster closure of wounds, reducing the likelihood of infections. Reducing the likelihood of infections is very important to us, as it is said that approximately 7.7 million people die from infections each year. Banana peels are also an untapped waste product that are quite common in countries such as Somalia, who have a large industry of banana growth. Our final bandage composed of 4 components: a banana bioplastic for fibre support. The bandage also had a gauze strip soaked in plant-based indicator, which would be used by medical professionals to indicate if the wound is healing simply by monitoring the colour change of the gauze. A plant-based adhesive was also used to apply the bandage to the skin, and alongside a hydrogel. A hydrogel is a water-based substance that helps wounds heal without infecting or scarring. Hydrogel is made by a combination of household and lab ingredients. In the future, we wish to determine the shelf life of our bandages. We plan to compare the physical, chemical, and biological properties of bananas when they're stored, and we look to make our bandages waterproof by measuring the impact of water on the water immersion of the absorbency. This will be used to determine if the bandage is waterproof.
Very good. And then you've used other plants on this slide I'm seeing about cabbage and blueberries.
Yeah, these are used for the plant-based indicator. So the indicator is basically the gauze is soaked into the indicator, and once the bandage is left on for a certain period of time and removed, the colour of the gauze will indicate if the wound is healing. So as you can see down at the bottom in the picture here, the darker the color, the more acidic it is. No, sorry, more basic it is. And if the more basic the wound is, the higher the healing rate is. And if it's more like a pinkish color, like the one on the far left, that tells you that the wound has currently impaired from healing.
All right, okay. Where did you come across the idea of a plant-based indicator?
So while we were doing our research on wounds, we found how to measure if a wound is kind of healing. So basically by the method of pH indicating. So finding the acidity or the base or the alkaline of the wound. So we applied our junior cert, shall we say, course in science from the acid and bases to try and find a natural solution to finding an indicator.
Amazing, amazing. It's much more than just using a different fiber for bandages. There's a lot more to it. How strong is the fiber, say, compared to standard bandages?
Our bandage is a little bit weaker than standard commercial bandages, but while we were up at the RDS at BT, we spoke to a nurse, and she usually specialises with older people, and she was saying that our bandage is better sometimes for like older people because of the irritation from commercial bandages, because they're so hard and stuck onto the skin, that when they're removed they cause damage and irritation to the weak skin of elderly people. So our bandages will be a lot more comfortable while removing them for the elderly people. We also measured the absorbency. So the absorbency would be used for like taking in blood or any pus or anything that comes from the wound. So that was studied by soaking different materials of the bandages that we tried into water, and then measuring the before mass and then the after mass. We also then examined the flexibility. So that's how the bandage would adapt to the movement of the patient, and the insulation of the banana materials. So the insulation measures the ability of the heat of the bandage to keep in heat, as heat is also a great healer for wounds.
Yeah.
We then moved on to antimicrobial action. So this is how we measured if our materials would inhibit bacterial growth. So our original bioplastic didn't inhibit bacterial growth. So then we added lavender essential oils, which are native to East Africa. So they increased it significantly, and eventually bioplastic outperformed a commercial alternative.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful.
And just here are some of the results for some of our tests, such as the tensile strength, absorbency, and the peel force. The peel force is basically the measure of the bandage removal, like how much force is needed to remove it from the skin.
And did you get as far as considering how viable it would be for this kind of product to be made in country?
Basically, the bioplastic itself is quite easy to make. It's basically chopped up banana waste, which would be readily available in the likes of Somalia, where they have the industry for it. The banana peels would be chopped up and then blended with water. The excess water would be drained out, and that would be rolled out onto a stove and rolled out and left underneath the stove. So they're quite simple to make. So like poorer people in the likes of Somalia would eventually be able to make them themselves and use them themselves with the right training.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, exactly. With the right training, and as long as the the equipment or any of the materials are not prohibitively expensive, then there's no reason why something like this could not be an endemic product, reaching people that can't access standard medical equipment, even basic first aid equipment like you're describing. So, and those figures of unnecessary deaths, preventable deaths, it can have a really big impact. So that's really impressive. And I think it'd be very interesting to hear what kind of response you get or maybe you're getting it already. You've already got that great response from a nurse. I mean, what's happened since? Has the project gone further? Have you spoken to people about it further?
We've continued on with testing to try and make the bandage stronger and more durable in heat conditions, so it can be used in different developing countries. We're also trying to reduce, to prolong the shelf life of the hydrogels. So the hydrogels will also be applied to the skin, so then they could increase the less chance of infection.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, there's so many elements to the bandage that you've thought about. It's really impressive. All being well, that you get to, because you are our winners, that you get to visit one of our programs, possibly maybe even Smorden in Malawi, who knows how these things work, and see what the response is like. And then just quickly, are you aware of anything similar already being done or used in different parts of the world?
There's nothing really like our bandage, but there is other plant-based materials that are used in medicine, such as sphagnum moss, which is commonly found in Irish bogs and was collected by women and children and sorted, dried and put into muslin bags, and was in use in World War I and II. It can absorb 20 times its volume in liquid and restricts bacterial growth because of its acidity.
Yeah, so maybe that's an Irish resource, although I think the sphagnum moss is fairly rare and possibly often in protected areas, so we'd have to be careful how we utilize it, but maybe there's ways to do that. So brilliant, thank you very much for that. I'm sure we're going to be hearing much more about your product. Let's go over finally to St Mel's College in Longford, Jared and Gerard, and their project titled Upcycling Waste Streams for Agricultural Use and Protecting Water Sources. And the description goes on to say that the project investigates how human waste can be used to replace chemical fertilizer on farms, which would prevent the waste from being dumped into water sources. So tell us about this approach and maybe tell us how big a problem it is at the moment with runoff into water sources in Ireland.
It's a very big problem now. We first looked at it in ag science class, and we've seen the amount being let into Loch Ness.
Yes.
North, and just something had to be done. Like,
true. So what can be done?
We convert the human waste into a biosolid, and we use hydrated lime to make it into the biosolid, therefore taking out all pathogens, making it safe to use.
If you're producing food on this land, you're able to use it as long as you put the biosolids in.
Right. Okay. Well, this is news to me. I haven't heard of being able to make human waste safe so easily. How did you even start with this as a concept? Because I mean, most people would be very concerned about combining human waste with food production.
We were in ag science class first, and our teacher was talking about Loch Ness, like Jared said, and 20% of that pollution in Loch Ness came from human waste. And then as well as that, he told us that human waste has all the necessary components for plant production, N, P, and K. And then the last thing he told us, he was just kind of going on about human waste, and he said 35% of Ireland's human waste goes into water sources, open water, like rivers and seas. That comes out to about 500 billion litres of human waste into the water. So like, anything would be better than that happening.
And then I suppose we can only multiply that up by, other countries with much bigger populations and even less sewage management. So did you look at solutions like this in other countries?
Well, it's done already, but on a very small scale. It's very valuable substance to use in Ireland. It's free. Like, you don't have to even pay to use it, and it's kind of used in small scale all over the world, but not a big scale like it could be. And instead, all the water is not all the water. Water is being polluted with human waste.
The term you used, the solution or the additive that you add to the waste to kill the pathogens, what was that called again?
Hydrated lime.
And where would you get that from? How do you source that?
Well, it's just like commercially available. Farmers spread it on their land anyways.
Ah, right. It's the agricultural lime that they use.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah, yeah. So when you were looking into this, you must have met resistance from people. You could convince people that this is a viable process and a safe thing to do?
Yeah, we could be able to convince people with test results showing that there's no dangerous chemicals in the biosolids.
People get confused. It's probably a bit of a stigma about it because there's already a different substance called sludge, and that's untreated human waste. And that can be used to fertilize land, but it can only be used to fertilize forestry land that isn't in the food chain at all. That's where that stigma would come from. If you got rid of that, it'd be fine. Nobody really would have a problem with it.
So, I mean, that's always part of our work, or that for social change, or for understanding that people need information and awareness to adapt to something different. Part of the research is to work out how you would encourage, make people happy with that, and just the opposite, the alternative being that it is causing serious problems to the water quality and to the habitats, the marine habitats downstream. Do you think farmers would adopt this as something that they might do, especially if they were paid to do it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Our ag science teacher, he uses it on, he's got a fairly big farm, he uses it and it's shown to be working.
Are you planning to, do you have scope to be involved in the Young Scientist again?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
You won't find a chemical fertilizer.
Well, best of luck with your continued research. Thank you very much. And then finally, let's go over back to Smaldon in Malawi. You've heard a lot there from the students on the different areas of research. So maybe just to finish up, would you detail some of the programs that you are presently working on?
Thank you so much, Aaron, and well done to our students. I was listening very keenly to the projects that they have been working on. Quite exciting. I like the fact that they all have the passion to reuse waste in a sustainable way and trying to ensure we create value from waste in various ways. And the slide that I'm just sharing, in a way, it answers to what the students have already been working on, but it also provides insights in terms of how we can utilize waste to make something valuable. The first, obviously, is organic waste, where we can produce compost and briquettes. And I already mentioned also about raising flies in terms of larvae. You can also use waste to create biogas, which can be used as a form of source of energy, which is also clean energy. And then we have various waste materials that can also be recycled and reused into various forms. You talk of paper, you talk of sawdust, that can also be made into briquettes. And then we also have some polythene tubes. Some can also be used in coming up with some pavings, as you can see on the picture there. And then the most important one, which was also being discussed with the students just recently, is around human waste. That's the sanitary waste. And this is the area that we've also been working with our communities to reuse waste from the toilets or the latrines that they are using. And I must say that we've also had challenges, especially the fact that most people wouldn't want to touch the waste. But then we've been able to come up with some solutions and to skate around that challenge by providing different types of ecological sanitation options because there are some options that would not require touching after you harvest the waste. So I think those are some of the things that we've been trying to bring on board. And I want to mention to say, we've mostly been focusing on connecting waste or wash to agriculture. As you are aware that Self-Help Africa is a multi-sectoral organization. So we do wash, we do agriculture, and we also do sustainable energy. So we are endeavoring to build synergies between our different programming. And the picture that you are seeing there now are the types of ecological sanitation latrines. So these are latrines where we are able to harvest human waste, and then it can be reused for production. So the first one is called Abalu, and we've used this to grow or create a woodlot in a way. And you use a pit. Once it's full, you just backfill, and then on top of it, you just plant a tree. So in that case, there is no touching. And this is one of the technologies the communities have been happy with, because the aspect of touching is not there. As you can see, one of the pictures there, that is showing a fruit tree that was planted on a field pit. And then the second one is Fossa Atrina. So it has got two alternating pits. You use one, and then once the first one is full, you backfill, and then you use the second one, while the other one is actually developing to become waste. And then probably after 6 months, that's when you can reuse that waste for something productive. And then the last one is Kailu, and this one actually separates urine from human waste, so that you can use urine for other purposes. And I heard one of the students also mentioning about the NPK. So you can also find these ingredients in manure. And the good thing about manure is that apart from those ingredients, it also helps to rejuvenate the soil. So it conditions the soil, and it also helps to improve the soil structure, which is one of the key things that we would want to support the communities with. Because I think we've massively used fertilizers, which in a way are also kind of a pollution to the environment. So these are some of the things that we are trialing, working with our communities to ensure that they improve their crop productivity by using sustainable solutions in terms of ecological sanitation, as well as also turning waste from markets into something valuable in terms of compost. Over to you, Aaron.
Wonderful. Yeah, waste to wealth, I can see there. So you've mentioned the difficult topic of human waste and minimizing that pollution in water, the alternative for fertilizer, which touches on 2 of our projects. I wonder, are you aware of this idea that the girls were sharing, Rachel and Ella, about plant-based bandages? Have you come across the use of banana waste or other plant waste in this fashion before?
I have to be frank, I followed very keenly around this project. Personally, I'm not, but I should believe there could be some efforts that are already ongoing in terms of also trialing such projects. And I really like the innovation. I think it's something that really can go a long way. I think it's something that we can also look at as an organization to see whether it's something that we can also try to scale up in our areas that we are operating.
Watch this space. Hey, thank you for making time to join and sharing your insights and putting it into context of just how challenging this situation is around waste and its different forms. Maybe I'll just wind up the webinar there and just say thank you to the panel, our student projects from the 3 different schools around Ireland. Thank you very much to yourselves, your teachers, for making time for joining this, and to Smaldon Tomoka in Malawi. And so anyone watching this, best of luck if you're considering entering the BT Young Scientist this year, and maybe you'll feature on a webinar like this in the future.